Okay, we got a 2004 Acura MDX all-wheel drive 5-speed automatic. And, you know, Acura, of course, is Honda, and this is a very common problem with Honda automatic transmissions. First thing we're going to look at is this torque converter. And it's got a nice blue color to it, and that's from this converter get extremely hot by the fluid leaking out of it. And when it does that and does not get enough fluid to get back in it to have converter charge, fluid leaks out, this thing gets cherry red hot, as if somebody were to take a torch on it and just get the metal all nice and red hot, and then when it cools off, nice blue color there. So of course all that heat goes into the transmission, overheats the transmission, and then of course burns up the internal parts of it. Like I said, very common problem. You see these on a lot of Odysseys, Accords, and there's different reasons for that, and I'll kind of explain some of that to you, but just wanted to show you how blue this converter is. And I see them a lot, so we'll just go over here to the transmission. Got it all tore down on the bench here. Lots of parts on this particular model. This is an MDKA is the product code on this one. And a little bit different than the B7TA 4-speed, and even some of the newer 5-speeds, the way this one was designed. But in general, they pretty much operate the same way, even with a little bit differences. And I gotta say right now, it's really hard to explain how bad this thing really smells. It's just extremely, extremely bad. It just stinks. Once I opened it up, I had to open up my shop doors, get a fan going just to get the smell out of here, because it's burnt up so bad, and it just not, unless you're here to really understand it, you can't really appreciate how terrible it is. But anyway, it's been open for about 3 days, so it's kind of gone out. I can smell a little bit here. I've been working on it, but you can just see the fluid is just pitch black. It's just cooked. So there's nothing that could be helped. So there's a couple of issues here. One is this valve that's in the pressure regulator housing right there. And that valve has a tendency of sticking closed, and it won't allow converter fluid to get into the converter and cause it to leak out of the converter and not charge in and have a converter burn up and all the clutch material in the converter. Then at that point fills into the filter here, and you can see how black and all the crap that's inside. I haven't popped this apart yet. I'm going to do that, but it is just nasty. The vehicle's got 156,000 miles on it. Original OE transmission. No one's ever done any work to it. I don't know how well it's serviced, but one of the things that with Hondas, I suggest the service that has to be done every year, every 12 months. All it is a fluid you put in, fluid you take out. This filter you can only take out if you take the transmission apart. So there's really, all you have to do is fill the fluid or drain the fluid, put fluid in. And if you use Honda OE fluid from Honda, there's additives in that fluid to help get this transmission cleaned out and help keep that help keep that filter cleaned, so that you don't have a premature failure. Unfortunately, this one did fail, but you know, with 156,000 miles, depending on how the vehicle is driven, the owners, and everything else, there's a lot of variables that go into a transmission failure. Unfortunately, with this one is a common issue with that valve, with the filter clogging, issues with the converter, so on and so forth. So it's almost inevitable that you're going to have to do a transmission build in a certain amount of time. It just prolongs it if you do the maintenance every year compared to what it says in the owner's manual, about every 20 or 25,000 miles. I mean, we're using vehicles a lot more now. We're putting a lot more miles in per year. This particular vehicle, and I would say actually every vehicle that has an internal filter should be done at least once a year. And you know, and actually my vehicles that don't have internal filters, I do them once a year. I mean, it can be a little expensive, especially if it's running a synthetic oil, and the filter's a little expensive. But I'm telling you, when it comes down to doing a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 transmission, that $250, which you may end up paying to do a service, really goes a long way. anyway, we got it all tore down here. Got to get it all completely cleaned up. The parts washer is going to work overtime to get this one done. See the clutch plates here. This is just one set, but after this thing got cooked, I mean, you could see this plate here, this very top one, still was living, had a little bit of life left. Bottom part of it, not so much. And then, of course, its buddies underneath it. As I just continue to go, more and more damage. I mean, just cooked. You know, transmission overheated due to the converter, and then still driving the vehicle, still shifting it into gear, and then each one of these clutches get compromised, and you know, everything gets into the valve bodies. They get into this stuff. They get into those valves. They get into everywhere, and just all that material just gets into things, and it all has to be cleaned out. But anyway, we're gonna get this thing back together. We're gonna do some updates on that valve. If I'm gonna go through it now, Sonic's transmission parts, they have an updated valve for that I use on all Hondas. Plus, they have plugs. These end plugs here. Some of these have O-rings on them because they do like to leak out of the ends there. But what I'm going to do is measure this one and see if it's too loose, and if it's too worn out, then we can get that oversized. We can ream it with a drill, and then it can have an oversized valve to go in there, and that'll pretty much rebuild that valve body. And then same thing with the leather valves in here, the shift valves and all that stuff. So always do the updates on these. Any Hondas, I'll get updates, and of course new gaskets, filters, seals, and so on. So anyway, this is a pretty nasty one. We'll get it all taken care of and get it down the road. Thanks for watching.